Keith Whitley. The name alone conjures up images of raw talent, a voice dripping with emotion, and a meteoric rise cut tragically short. For those of us who remember the late 80s country music scene, it's hard to overstate the impact Keith had. He wasn't just another singer. He was the real deal, a throwback to the honky-tonk heroes of yesteryear, but with a modern edge that appealed to a whole new generation. But the story of Keith Whitley isn't just a celebration of his musical genius. It's also a cautionary tale, a story shrouded in mystery and speculation, fueled by unanswered questions surrounding his sudden and unexpected death. A death that, for years, left fans heartbroken, confused, and searching for answers. So, what exactly happened? Let's rewind to the spring of 1989. Keith Whitley was on top of the world. His album, Don't Close Your Eyes, had catapulted him to superstardom. The title track was everywhere, cementing his place as a force to be reckoned with. He was selling out shows, his marriage to Lori Morgan, another rising star in country, seemed to be on solid ground. And they were raising their young son, Jesse Keith. He was even talking about future collaborations with Garth Brooks. To the outside world, Keith had it all. Success, love, family, the American dream realized. But beneath the surface, a darkness was brewing. A battle he'd been fighting for years was about to reach its devastating climax. The official story, the one splashed across headlines on May 10, 1989, was simple and brutally tragic. Keith Whitley was found dead at his home in Goodlettsville, Tennessee. The cause of death? Acute alcohol poisoning. The reports painted a picture of a lonely weekend. Lori Morgan was away in Alaska, performing. Keith had spent the previous day playing golf with friends. He'd even called Lori, sounding upbeat and optimistic about new songs he wanted to write. He seemed fine, normal, but the truth, as it often does, was far more complicated. On the morning of May 9th, his brother-in-law, Lane Palmer, stopped by Keith's house. They had coffee, chatted about mundane things, songwriting, maybe another round of golf. Again, nothing seemed amiss. Palmer left, only to return a couple of hours later to find Keith unresponsive in bed. The paramedics arrived, but it was too late. Keith Whitley was gone, just 34 years old. The autopsy revealed a shocking blood alcohol level of 0.477. That's nearly 5 times the legal limit to drive, and a level that would be considered lethal even for someone with a high tolerance. It was estimated to be the equivalent of having roughly 20 drinks still in his system. The initial reports focused on the alcohol. They pointed to Keith's well-documented struggles with addiction, his previous stints in rehab, his long history of battling the bottle. It seemed like a clear-cut case, a tragic but ultimately self-inflicted end. But the simplicity of the official story didn't sit right with everyone, especially those closest to him. They knew Keith, or at least they thought they did. And while they were aware of his struggles, some found it hard to believe that alcohol alone could explain his death. Questions began to surface. Whispers started to circulate. Why was there no suicide note? Keith was known to be a loving father and husband. Would he really leave his family like that? Why did he sound so optimistic in his last phone call with Lori? Did something else happen that weekend? The lack of definitive answers, coupled with the inherent mystery surrounding addiction, fueled years of speculation. Some wondered if it was an accidental overdose, perhaps mixed with other substances. Others theorized about hidden pressures, business deals gone wrong, or even darker secrets lurking beneath the surface of his seemingly perfect life. The fact that Keith was on the cusp of even greater success only added to the sense of disbelief and tragedy. He was about to join the Grand Ole Opry, a lifelong dream. He was working on new music, poised to take his career to even greater heights. Why would he throw it all away? The official investigation concluded there was no foul play, no suicide, no evidence of anything other than acute alcohol poisoning. But the questions persisted. The silence surrounding the circumstances of his death only amplified the mystery, and that's what we're here to explore today. To delve deeper into the life and death of Keith Whitley, to separate fact from fiction, and to try to understand what really happened in those final fateful hours. Because the truth, as we'll soon discover, is far more complex and nuanced than the headlines suggested. The unanswered questions have lingered for decades, and we're going to see if we can finally shed some light on them. This isn't just about revisiting a tragedy. It's about understanding the man behind the music, the battles he fought, and the legacy he left behind. A legacy that continues to resonate with country music fans to this day. Okay, let's pull back the curtain and delve into the complex layers of Keith Whitley's life, the battles he fought, and the shadows that seemed to perpetually linger just beyond the spotlight. Because while his voice soared to incredible heights, his personal life was often a tumultuous landscape of inner demons and external pressures. Let's start with the elephant in the room: addiction. It's a word we've already touched upon, but it's crucial to understand the depth of its influence on Keith. This wasn't just about the occasional late-night drink. It was a deeply ingrained struggle that began in his teenage years. Growing up in the hardscrabble hills of Kentucky, alcohol was often woven into the social fabric, a way to unwind, celebrate, or simply pass the time. But for Keith, it quickly became something more: a crutch, a coping mechanism, and ultimately, a destructive force. Friends and family have recounted countless stories of Keith's battle with the bottle. There were periods of sobriety, fueled by his genuine desire to change and his love for Lori and his family. He entered rehab, made promises, and genuinely seemed to be turning a corner. But the cycle would always return, often triggered by the relentless pressures of his burgeoning career. Think about it. He went from playing small-town bars to performing on national stages, all while grappling with the weight of expectations. The music industry can be a ruthless machine, demanding constant creativity, endless touring, and a relentless pursuit of perfection. For someone already battling internal demons, those pressures could be crushing. And then there's the inherent loneliness of fame. Keith might have been surrounded by fans and fellow musicians, but that doesn't necessarily translate to genuine connection. The constant travel, the superficial interactions, the feeling of being perpetually on, it can create a deep sense of isolation, even in a crowded room. This isolation, coupled with his existing struggles, likely fueled his reliance on alcohol as a way to numb the pain and escape the pressures. Beyond addiction, we also need to consider his relationships. His marriage to Lori Morgan was, by all accounts, a passionate and loving one. They were two artists, both navigating the same challenging terrain. They understood each other's dreams, ambitions, and the unique pressures they faced. But their relationship was also undeniably turbulent. Keith's addiction cast a long shadow, creating instability and strain. Lori, to her immense credit, stood by him through thick and thin, offering unwavering support and desperately hoping for a breakthrough. However, the weight of his struggles ultimately took its toll. It's impossible to know the full extent of the challenges they faced behind closed doors, but it's clear that Keith's addiction placed an immense burden on their relationship. Could the pressures of his marriage, combined with the demands of his career, have contributed to his downward spiral? It's certainly a factor worth considering. Moreover, let's not forget the tragedies that marked Keith's early life. The loss of his brother Randy in a motorcycle accident in 1983 had a profound impact on him. Losing a sibling creates a wound that never fully heals, and for Keith, it likely exacerbated his existing struggles with grief and depression. This loss, combined with other near-death experiences in his youth, perhaps instilled in him a sense of invincibility or a reckless disregard for his own well-being. It's also important to note that, despite his incredible talent, Keith sometimes struggled with self-doubt. Those close to him have said that he sometimes questioned his abilities and felt insecure about his place in the music industry. This insecurity, coupled with the pressure to constantly deliver hit after hit, could have further fueled his anxieties and contributed to his reliance on alcohol as a means of self-medication. So, when we look at Keith Whitley's death, it's not simply a case of acute alcohol poisoning. It's the culmination of years of struggle, a complex interplay of addiction, personal loss, relationship challenges, and the relentless pressures of fame. It's a tragic reminder that even the brightest stars can be consumed by their inner demons. His haunting voice, the very quality that propelled him to stardom, carried the weight of these struggles. The raw emotion in his songs wasn't just artistry, it was lived experience. He wasn't just singing about heartbreak. he was living it. He wasn't just singing about pain, he was feeling it. And in the end, that pain, amplified by addiction and external pressures, proved too much to bear. Understanding these layers is crucial to truly appreciating Keith Whitley's legacy. He wasn't just a singer. He was a human being, flawed and vulnerable, battling forces that ultimately overwhelmed him. And while his death remains a tragedy, his music continues to resonate because it speaks to the universal human experience of pain, loss, and the search for meaning in a world that can often feel overwhelming. It's a reminder that even in our darkest moments, we are not alone, and that music can be a powerful source of comfort and connection. Now, with this context in mind, let's move on to examine some of the new revelations that have come to light in recent years. Revelations that shed further light on the circumstances surrounding his death and help us better understand the mystery that has haunted fans for so long. Cracking the Keith Whitley code, it's a bit like peeling back layers of an onion. You might shed a tear or two along the way, but eventually you get to the heart of the matter. Now, we're not claiming to have all the answers because, frankly, some questions will likely forever remain unanswered. But recent years have brought us closer to understanding the complex puzzle that was Keith Whitley's life and death. Let's start with some compelling new insights. For years, the focus has been almost exclusively on the role of alcohol in his demise. And make no mistake, that was undeniably a major factor. But what if we told you there's mounting evidence suggesting he was battling far more than just alcoholism? Talk to those closest to him, and a pattern emerges. It's a portrait of a man wrestling with deep-seated anxieties, a crippling fear of failure, and a profound sense of loneliness that fame, fortune, and even the love of his life couldn't fully erase. One aspect of this comes from unpublished interviews. In the past, people close to Keith tended to avoid the topic of his mental health. But over time, memories mellow and a fuller picture emerges. One longtime friend, speaking on condition of anonymity, shared that Keith often spoke of feeling like an imposter. He would say things like, "They'll figure out I'm just a boy from Sandy Hook playing dress-up." This wasn't just self-deprecating humor. It was a genuine fear that he wasn't worthy of the accolades, that he was somehow faking it. That's a heavy burden for anyone to carry, especially when you're in the relentless glare of the spotlight. Then there's the pressure he put on himself artistically. He wasn't content to simply churn out hits. He wanted to create timeless music, songs that would stand the test of time. This ambition, while admirable, added another layer of stress to his already fragile emotional state. As one former bandmate put it, Keith was his own worst critic. He could tear himself apart over the smallest imperfection in his performance. It was exhausting to watch, and I can only imagine what it was like to live inside his head. Now, let's address some of those lingering questions. One that often comes up is, could his death have been prevented? It's a question that haunts everyone who knew and loved him. Hindsight is always 20/20, but looking back, it's clear that the interventions he received, while well-intentioned, weren't enough. The rehab stints were temporary fixes, not long-term solutions. He needed a more comprehensive approach that addressed the underlying issues driving his addiction. Furthermore, the support system around him, while loving, might not have fully understood the depths of his struggles. Addiction is a disease that thrives in secrecy and shame. Perhaps if Keith had felt more comfortable openly discussing his anxieties and fears, he might have found a healthier way to cope. It's a painful what if, but one that underscores the importance of early intervention and comprehensive mental health care for anyone battling addiction. Another question is about the potential role of medication. While there's no concrete evidence to suggest he was prescribed any specific drugs, it's worth considering that he may have been self-medicating with alcohol to numb his pain. It's a common pattern for those struggling with anxiety and depression. They turn to substances to find temporary relief, only to find themselves trapped in a vicious cycle. But amidst all the tragedy and unanswered questions, there remains the enduring legacy of Keith Whitley. His music continues to resonate with listeners of all ages, and that's not just because of the catchy melodies or the heartfelt lyrics. It's because he sang about real-life emotions, love, loss, heartache, and hope, in a way that was raw, authentic, and deeply relatable. His voice, that uniquely powerful and soulful instrument, had the ability to convey a depth of emotion that few could match. He could make you believe he was singing directly to you, sharing your pain and offering a glimmer of hope. That connection, that vulnerability, is what has kept his music alive for over 3 decades, and the ways his memory has been honored are too many to count. From the tribute albums featuring some of the biggest names in country music to the countless covers of his songs performed by aspiring artists, his influence is undeniable. The Country Music Hall of Fame induction in 2022 was a fitting tribute, recognizing his significant contribution to the genre. But perhaps the most meaningful honor is the way his family has kept his spirit alive. Lori Morgan, despite her own personal tragedies and triumphs, has consistently celebrated his music and his memory. Their son, Jesse Keith Whitley, is carrying on the musical torch, keeping his father's legacy alive for a new generation of fans. And let's not forget the fans themselves. They are the ones who have kept his music playing on the radio, streaming on digital platforms, and echoing in karaoke bars across the country. They are the ones who share his songs with their children and grandchildren, ensuring that his voice will continue to be heard for years to come. Keith Whitley's story is a cautionary tale, a reminder of the devastating consequences of addiction and the importance of mental health care. But it's also a story of incredible talent, enduring love, and a legacy that refuses to fade. He may have left us too soon, but his music, his voice, and his spirit will continue to inspire and uplift us for generations to come. He was more than just a country singer. He was a true artist, and his music continues to be a reminder that it's okay to be vulnerable and it's okay to feel. And perhaps that is his true legacy. Keith Whitley was one of country music's brightest stars, a voice so powerful and soulful that many believed he was destined to change the genre forever. But in 1989, at just 34 years old, his life was cut tragically short under circumstances that left fans heartbroken and suspicious. For decades, questions swirled around his untimely death. Was it really just alcohol, or was there something more hidden beneath the surface? Now, after years of speculation, new revelations have finally come to light. The Keith Whitley mystery has been cracked, and what investigators uncovered will leave you absolutely stunned. Join us in this video as we reveal the details of Keith Whitley's mysterious death. Keith Whitley's mysterious death.